My name is Drew, and you're watching ReadyBudgetGo. If we haven't met before, welcome. I'm glad you found your way here. And if you've been here before, welcome back. It's good to see you again. This is My Money Relaunch, a series where I talk about all the things I did to take control of my financial life after I dug myself out of debt for the second time. Before we go into today's topic, there's a couple points that I need to cover. First, I'm not a financial advisor. This series is for informational and entertainment purposes only. Before making any moves with your money, do your own research and seek your own counsel. Second, while I'm talking, I will be putting down stickers in this paint-by-sticker book. If you're not new to this series, I previously was saving $2 per sticker, but because I'm constrained in how much I can put aside this month, I'm adjusting that to $1 per sticker, at least for December. The point is to keep saving. Whether you are watching me try to make the most of my limited fine motor skills by putting stickers down, or you are just listening to me talk, I'm glad you're here. And now with all that out of the way, let's jump into today's topic. If you've been watching this series from the start, then you will know that I've been covering what I call the STRIVE method, which stands for saving and spending, taxes, retirement, insurance, investments, and estate planning. Each month, I focus on one of these areas, and each week in this series, I focus on one of these areas as well. This week, we're talking about investments, and as you will see, this crosses over into all the other subject areas of STRIVE. One of the reasons I pursued financial education after I got out of debt is that the idea of investing terrified me. I had several preconceived notions about investing, such as that it was only for rich people, that it was incredibly complex and I would never understand it, and that it was full of people looking to rip you off left and right. As it turns out, the first is completely untrue, the second is mostly untrue, and the third is about half true. I learned that people who were in far more debt than I ever was owned investments. I also learned that although there are people who work in the financial sector who would very much like for you to think that you're incapable and have you pay them for making you think that, I could actually learn enough about investing to feel confident in making my own decisions about where to park my money. Recently, I've been thinking about my theme for 2026. This is usually a short phrase that I pick as a kind of North Star for what I would like the year to be. My theme for 2025, which I don't believe I've shared on my channel, was the year of recovery. 2024 was a very tumultuous year for me, and 2025 was supposed to be the year that I reorganized my life and forged a new path. One that, until late 2024, I didn't think I would have to make. Life had other ideas for 2025, and that's okay. I persevere. If you've navigated to my channel banner here on YouTube lately, you may have already noticed my theme for 2026, which is Steer Fearlessly. This reflects my life goals, which I talk about in other videos here on my channel, but it relates directly to investing as well. Being an investor in anything requires a certain amount of intestinal fortitude. You have to accept the risk that your investment may lose value. I've talked about risk a lot throughout this series, and the reason I keep coming back to it is that not understanding risk is one of the main reasons that holds people back from investing their money or behaving with their money in the way that is most advantageous to them. And I'm no exception. Of course, fully understanding risk does not mean that you throw caution to the wind and start plowing your money into any shiny object that catches your eye. But it means you understand the risk of action as well as the risk of inaction. To illustrate this, let's look at two hypothetical people, Sue and Fred. Each has $5,000 they can invest, and they are each in the 24% IRS tax bracket. This is money that they won't need to access for several years. Sue understands risk. She knows she does not have a high risk tolerance for exotic investments, but she also knows that leaving her money in a savings account, even a high-interest savings account, will yield only meager returns. Sue decides to put her money in a low-cost mutual fund that mirrors the S&P 500 index. A mutual fund is a fancy name for a group of stocks. The S&P, or Standard & Poor's 500, is the index of the largest 500 companies in the U.S. based on market capitalization. Market capitalization, which is sometimes called market cap, means how much all the company's outstanding shares of stock are worth combined. Fred does not understand risk, and therefore is terrified of making the wrong investment decision. Fred decides to put his money into a savings account that earns 4% interest each year, and is relieved that his money is safe and protected because it's in an FDIC-insured institution. But because Fred does not understand risk, he also does not understand that by keeping his money in a savings account, he could miss out on returns that other investments can offer. At the end of 10 years, Fred's money has grown nicely to $7,400. He's paid taxes on the interest that account generates, and by the end of year 10, he's sent well over $500 to Uncle Sam for the privilege of earning interest on his money. Sue, on the other hand, has fared a bit better. There were years when her investments were worth less than Fred's savings account, when the stock market went south. But because Sue knew she did not need the money for a long time, she held on to her investments even when the stock market dipped, knowing that over time the S&P 500 has performed very well for investors. At the end of 10 years, the money she has invested has compounded an average of 10% each year, meaning her shares are now worth considerably more than when she purchased them. In fact, they're worth well over $14,000, or nearly double what Fred has in his bank account. Not only that, but Sue has earned about 1.1% in dividends each year. A dividend is a sort of profit-sharing payment that some companies distribute to their shareholders. Most large corporations that have been around a long time produce dividends. That 1.1% is significantly less than what Fred has earned, but that also meant that Sue had a smaller tax bill for her earnings each year, not only because the proceeds were smaller, but because most of the dividends were qualified. Qualified means that the dividend payment meets certain criteria with the IRS for favorable tax treatment. Qualified dividends are taxed as long-term capital gains, which means Sue paid only 15% income tax to the IRS, and only on the dividend that it earned. The value of her investment continued to grow, tax-free or tax-deferred, during that 10-year period. So after 10 years, Sue has an investment worth over $14,000, for which she has paid about $100 in taxes to the Treasury. Fred has $7,400 and has paid over $500 in taxes. You may have already formed an opinion of who got the better deal here, but bear this in mind. Neither of these people made a better choice than the other. They simply made the choice that was appropriate for their risk profile. The difference, however, is that Fred only had an idea of downside risk, that his investment could lose value if he put it in the stock market. He did not understand upside risk, that by not investing wisely, he risked having less money 10 years later than someone who knew how to invest. To reiterate a point I made earlier, being fearless is not the same as being reckless. Being fearless means being bold while having knowledge. Being reckless means being bold while also being ignorant. Charging forth into the world of investing when you don't know what you're doing can produce disastrous results. And as I also said, there are many respectable-looking people in this world who are all too happy to prey on that ignorance. So what do you do? What do you do when you feel the world of investing is daunting and scary? And even if you don't feel that way, perhaps you're put off by all the math involved. Believe me, I am no math wizard. Investing is a language, just like English or French or Japanese. If you don't speak it, it feels exotic or foreign, and understanding is impossible. But if you learn the words and the syntax and the jargon and the slang, and you practice, and if you speak with other people who speak that language, eventually it will come naturally to you. Think about something that you enjoy doing. This could be a hobby, like cooking or sewing, or a sport, or even your career. Chances are when you first started with that activity, there were all kinds of terms and phrases and rules that you didn't know about. But you persevered, and now those terms are second nature to you. You may even find yourself explaining them to other people who are less experienced than you are. You may find that you have to use different language when you're talking with a novice or somebody who's just starting out. True, those activities probably don't have stakes as high as your money, but think about how you got started. You probably didn't just dive in head first, and if you did, you probably felt immediately overwhelmed. When it comes to investing, take it slow. Get comfortable with it before you really dive in. If you need help, ask. And when I say ask, I don't just mean ask one person. I mean ask several people. Find the person who is qualified to give you an answer. If something doesn't sit right with you when you talk to somebody about a question that you have and they give you an answer that doesn't make sense or doesn't sound like it applies to you or that you understood the question or they understood the question, ask someone else. Keep asking. Remain curious. Don't be satisfied with the first answer you get. Just keep asking until you fully understand the answer. Once you fully understand the answer to your question, or you're satisfied with the understanding that you've obtained, then proceed with confidence and steer fearlessly. You will get there, but it takes determination. And as for the math part, the internet is full of specialty calculators that can tell you anything you want to know about how an investment has performed. Once you know the language, the math becomes far, far simpler. Okay, that's all for this week. Next week, we'll be talking about estate planning again. I'll be discussing how I navigated some of the most difficult conversations of my life with loved ones about their final wishes and how they wanted their estate managed. I hope you'll join me then. For now, if you did enjoy this episode of My Money Relaunch, please be sure to give it a thumbs up, leave me a comment down below, and subscribe if you're new. And until I see you in the next one, take care.